Prabhu, Kali. Did you get on the board yet? Is it working? Eke yato bayam ahankara vimudasya kartu prakritim iyusha. Oh, you got it, huh? Okay. Prabhavam Parusham Prabhu Kalam Eke Yato Bayam Ahankara Vimudasha Katu Prakritim Ishusha. Prabhavam Parusham Prabhu Kalam Eke Yato Bayam Ahankara Vimudasha Kartu Prakritim Iyusa. Prabhavam Parusham Prabhu Kalam Eke Yato Bayam Ahankara Vimudasha Kartu Prakritim Iyusaha. Jai Gora Nitari Ki Jai. Prabhavam Parusham Prabhu Kalam Eke Yato Bayam Ahankara Vimudasha Prakritim Iyusha. Prabhavam Parusham Prabhu Kalam Eke Yato Bayam Ahankara Vimudasha Kartu Prakritim Iyusha.
Prabhavam Parusham Prabhu
Prabhavam Parusham Prabhu
Kalam Eke Yato Bayam
Kalam Eke Yato Bayam
Ahankara Vimudasya Kartu Prakritim Iyusha.
Kartu Prakritim Iyusha.
Prabhavam Paurasham Prabhu
Prabhavam Parusham Prabhu
Kalam Eke Yato Bayam
Kalam Eke Yato Bayam
Ahankara Vimudasya Kartu Prakritim Iyusa.
Kartu Prakritim Iyusha.
Prabhavam Parusham Prabhu
Prabhavam Parusham Prabhu
Kalam Eke Yato Bayam
Kalam Eke Yato Bayam
Ahankara Vimudasya Kartu Prakritim Iyusha.
Kartu Prakritim Iyusha. Prabhavam Parusham Prabhu Kalam Eke Yato Bayam Ahankara Vimudasha Kartu Prakritim Iyusha.
Prabhavam Parusham Prahu
Prabhavam Parusham Prabhu
Kalam Eke Yato Bayam
Kalam Eke Yato Bayam
Ahankara Vimudasya
Ahankara Vimudasya
Kartu Prakritim Iyusaha
Kartu Prakritim Iyusha
Prabhavam Parusham Prahu
Prabhavam Parusham Prabhu
Kalam Heke Yato Bayam
Kalam Eke Yato Bayam
Ahankara Vimudasya
Ahankara Vimudasya
Kartu Prakritam Iyusha
Kartu Prakritim Iyusha
Prabhavam Purusham Prahu
Parusham Prabhu
Kalam Eke Yato Bhayam
Kalam Eke Yato Bayam
Ahankara Vimudasya
Ahankara Vimudasya
Kartu Prakritim Iyusa
Kartu Prakritim Iyusha
Prabhavam Purusham Praho
Prabhavam Parusham Prabhu
Kalam Eke Yato Bhayam
Kalam Eke Yato Bayam
Ahankara Vimuthasya
Ahankara Vimudasya
Kartu Prakritim Iyusaha
Kartu Prakritim Iyusha
Prabhavam Paurusham Prahu Prabhavam Paurusham Prahu
Sampraho
Kalam Eke Yato Bayam
Kalam Eke Yato Bayam
Ahankara Vimudasya
Ahankara Vimudasya
Vartuhi Prakritim Iyusha
Kartu Prakritim Iyusaha
Prabhavam Parusham Prahu
Bhavam Parusham Prahu
Kalam Eke Yato Bhayam
Kalam Eke Yato Bayam
Ahankara Vimudhasya
Ahankara Vimudasya
Kartuhu Prakritimi Yushaha
Kartu Prakritim Iyusaha
Prabhavam Purusham Prahu
Prabhavam Parusham Prahu
Kalam Eka Yato Bhayam
Kalam Eke Yato Bayam
Ahankara Vimudhasya
Ahankara Vimudasya
Kartu Prakritim Iyusaha
Kartu Prakritim Iyushaha Prabhavam
Godhead Prabhu they've said Kalam the time factor Eke some Yata from which Vayam fear Ahankara Vimudasya deluded by false ego Kartu of the individual soul Prakritim material nature Irsha having contacted. Translation and proof art by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. The influence of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is felt in the time factor, which causes fear of death due to the false ego of the deluded soul who has contacted material nature. The living entity's fear of death is due to his false ego of identifying with the body. Everyone is afraid of death. Actually, there is no death for the spirit soul, but due to our absorption in the identification of body as self, the fear of death develops. As also stated in Srimad Bhagavatam, 11th canto, 2nd chapter, text 37, Bayam Devitya Bhivinisata Syat. Devitya refers to matter, which is beyond spirit. Matter is the secondary manifestation of spirit, for matter is produced from spirit. Just as the material elements described are caused by the Supreme Lord or the Supreme Spirit, the body is also a product of the spirit soul. Therefore, the material body is called Devitya, or the second. One who is absorbed in this second element or second exhibition of the spirit is afraid of death. When one is fully convinced that he is not his body, there is no question in fearing death, since the spirit soul does not die. If the spirit soul engages in the spiritual activities of devotional service, he is completely freed from the platform of birth and death. His next position is complete spiritual freedom from a material body. The fear of death is the action of the Kala, or the time factor, which represents the influence of the Supreme Personality Godhead. In other words, time is destructive. Whatever is created is subject to destruction and dissolution, which is the action of time. Time is a representation of the Lord, and it reminds us also that we must surrender unto the Lord. The Lord speaks to every conditioned soul as time. He says in Bhagavad Gita that if someone surrenders unto him, then there is no longer any problem of birth and death. We should therefore accept this time factor as the Supreme Personality of Godhead standing before us. This is further explained in the following verse. So Prabhupada, he was talking about the lecture that I was listening to this morning. He was saying that every living entity has its own fixed time. So he says that you are creating your own time, your own past, present, and future, just by the specific material body that you have. And so then he explained this, the time factor is different for the ant, it's different for the elephant, it's different for the human being, it's different for the demigods, right? So the time factor for the ants and the flies, in our relative experience of time, they seem to come and go really fast, but they do everything. They have to be born, they have to go to school and learn, right, or whatever, and then, they eat, sleep, mating, defend, and die, right? So Prabhupada's talking about a bunch of flies. There are piles of flies in the morning, right? They live at night and they die in the morning. So there's piles and piles and piles of these little flies. So the relative time factor is different for each person according to the body. Then let's say Ahankara Vimuratma, the bewildered spirit soul under the influence of the three modes of material nature thinks himself to be the doer of activities which are actionality carried out by nature. So that's attached to material activities, or attached to sinful activities, or attached to economic development, karma kanda, or attached to the material concept of life, engaging in fruitive activities which have their adverse effects, trying to struggle to lord it over the resources of material nature. So, I'm trying to think of quite a few things I want to talk about. Because Srila Prabhupada, he was always stressing out through his spirit soul, we're part and parcel of Krishna, we're Sat Chit Ananda. So we're not meant to suffer, but although we have to accept birth, death, disease, and old age by acceptance of a material body, the spiritual soul is subject to the suffering, although it's not subject to the suffering. And then... So Prabhupada was talking about how Krishna, the Supreme Personality Godhead, is Nirguna and Saguna. So Prabhupada was using this interchangeably. When he was referring to the Nirguna as the impersonalist, it carried like a negative it carried in, a negative. But then there was the positive, that it goes, if you surrender to the Supreme Nirguna, you also become Nirguna. So he was talking about engaging in Krishna's service, which is free from the material qualities, right? So in a positive aspect, in devotional service. So he says Krishna is the supreme Saguna, so it's both Nirguna and Saguna. He doesn't possess material activities, but he possesses spiritual qualities and attributes. Not that, it's more like what Prabhu was saying, nadi, so it's not this, it's not that, it's not the other thing. But we also use nadi. Prabhu was talking about this too. This is not my hand, this is not my foot, this is not my head. Yeah, Maharaj was talking about that last week too. So then you say, okay, now where are you, right? So there's another thing that Maharaj had mentioned too. He was talking to some children at the farm, and he was saying, now, you had just gone through a cycle of birth and death of 8,400,000 species of life, and then you come to the human form of life and getting the opportunity to engage in devotional service. You don't want to go back down into the animal species, do you? And they were looking like they were like, no. So Maharaj was saying the same thing. You tell the children that you just gone through 8,400,000 species of life, was a process which took millions of years and a lot of suffering, and they totally accept it. But you mention that to a full-grown adult, they go, "Oh, come on, you don't expect me to believe that, do you?" Like that. So, but that's actually the process. So, by identifying with the material body as the self, with no recollection of our past lives, or with no knowledge of what our future destinations would be, but according to our activities and according to our karma and guna, we can get an idea of what somebody's future destinations could be. If they're engaging in sinful activities, then we can understand they'll suffer for every hair on the body of the animal if they're eating meat. Go to hellish planets, a rebirth. Actually, there was, there's a couple of devotees here, a brother and sister. They were talking about how they went to this office. And there was this one lady there. Even the way she kind of like walked, she looked like she was turning into a chicken. She had these quick type of movements with her head. And if you look at people's eyes, if they're really, really covered over, they don't look like they're, they look kind of dense. They're kind of covered over. I don't know, they're missing some sort of intelligence or something, or I don't know, they look kind of dense or something, But her eyes, a chicken's eyes, they're not very animate. But, she even had some skin hanging from her throat and the way she was moving her legs when she was walking, and her neck. They're going, this lady's actually turning into a chicken. So through the eyes of Shastra, Chakshu Shashusha, you can denote what someone's future could be, possibly what their past might have been, or we can imagine Krishna's form. But to Mayavadis, they say Krishna has no forms. But Prabhupada was saying that's actual real meditation, is the Saguna meditation, is meditating on Krishna's form and Krishna's qualities and Krishna's attributes. Did Maharaj wish to make a statement?
I just got lost of what you were talking about.
What's that?
I missed what you were talking about, something I couldn't follow it.
Oh, about the about Nirguna and Saguna, or what we can denote about someone's future, if they're engaging in sinful activities, or that lady that was turning into a chicken. Yeah, lady that was, because we can see people. Well, we can denote Maharaj and in Srimad in Srila Prabhupada, Leela Amrita, there's a description there where John Lennon had arranged for Srila Prabhupada to go to a camp. It was a nudist colony, right? So I guess the first person Prabhupada met, he actually became a devotee and gave up that practice. But I guess a lot of people feel it's natural, a clean thing to do or whatever, but apparently it can become a tree or a plant by this activity. Adverse reactions to fruitive activities. So we can denote that the trees standing out here, they're Krishna's energy, they committed some sinful activities and now they're being punished. They have to stand as trees. Or if we happen to, come across some information about the nudist colony, they're usually somewhere, I don't know where they are around here, but they're usually some way from this society, fenced off, or they're usually I think they're in the mountains or something, secluded places. They have to drive far to get there, in the mountains, some natural place. But you can note that that's their future. That's what they'll become, plants and trees. They'll have to suffer. Walking into the science fiction supermarket meat deli section, there's all the dead carcasses carved up and spray painted with some ink to look nice. For human consumption, so you can understand that there'll be total suffering. But the process of yoga is the yamas and the niyamas, because that was the other thing that they're actually talking about too, which Prabhupada was talking about. The specific avoidance of sinful activities and following the 4 rules and regulated principles and following the principles of Vaidhi Bhakti, the principles of regulated devotional service. Because that this is actually yoga. This is actually what makes it yoga and meditation. As controlling of the senses, what Krishna states in Bhagavad Gita, from whatever and wherever the mind wanders due to its flickering and unsteady nature, one must certainly withdraw it, bring it under control of itself. So John Bhagavad, he mentions that quite a lot. He mentions, gives an example of a specific thought, and so, so there's my thought. Okay, bring it back to the mantra, chanting Hare Krishna. The thought processes will, you'll chant longer, and the thinking processes will get shorter by this practice. Right? So when you kind of notice the mind volume, or one who restrains his senses and organs of action, but within whose mind dwells on sense objects, certainly deludes himself and is called a pretender. So Prabhupada was talking about such a show bottle spiritualist in his purport. It's that making a show of meditation, or the so-called yoga societies and meditation centers in the cities are actually a farce. You can denote that maybe it could be good for a certain period of time to not engaging in nonsense for the time being. But it's not really for reducing one's fat, although it has its benefits. Reduce your fat, get a stronger body, better digestive system, stronger sexual appetite. So, the whole idea is to focus your mind on Krishna. It's like, focus your mind. Okay, so focus your mind and concentrate your mind on what? Have a very powerful mind. Basically, it needs to be applied to something specific. So that would be the Krishna service, Krishna's name, Krishna's quality, Krishna's pastimes, not to say anything impersonal or void. Oh yeah, and so that's what they're also talking about in these verses, where when all of the material ingredients are within their dormant, subtle features, then that element within Krishna's unmanifested form is called pradhan. And then when this pradhan, when these elements are manifested, then it's called prakriti. So Prabhupada was saying that the living entity being marginal, being jiva atma, part and parcel of Krishna, as being in the same spiritual chemical composition as Krishna. Jai Gora Nitai Ki Jai. As part and parcel of Krishna, and there are innumerable living entities where Krishna is within their heart is Paramatma. Krishna is Paramatma is within every atom within the material world. So that we have the tendency to either be under Krishna's direct control, under the Yoga Maya, or he said we come under the control and identification with the material body as the self, and the Mahamaya in the material world. So he said there are two Mayas, the Mahamaya and the Yoga Maya. So he was stressing to develop the qualities of the Sattva Guna, or the Saguna, become transcendental to even the material modes of goodness, the Vasudeva Sattva, and develop spiritual qualities, and develop our spiritual body in our next life to go back home, back to Godhead, and associate with Krishna in our original atmosphere. He talked about how a fish out of water, it'll flop and flip and flop around. It's not happy out of the water. So you put him back in the water, or he'll just simply die. So that's like the living entity, the jiva in the material world. It's like a fish out of water. It's not a natural condition where where this verse is talking about how the living entity has a fear of death because of identification with the material body as the self. And we're really focusing on this specific lifetime with no recollection of our past lifetimes or no information of future lifetimes. We're really focusing on the identification of this specific body now as the self, with very little understanding of the science of the soul, or some that they're thinking like, I have a soul, it has wings, and I'll see it when I die. They don't really know, they don't really have any good information. I have a soul. Actually, we are the soul. The soul is the self. And it's a science, a spiritual science. And then, let's see, so, are there any questions or comments, something I would refresh my memory with? I kind of think about it, because there was a lot of things I wanted to think about. The difference of the living entity being in the material world. And we have this, he was saying, Ato Brahma Gyanasa, that this human form of life is meant for understanding what is Brahman. Right, coming out of the darkness of the material mind or the material identification, and coming into the light of Krishna consciousness or understanding Krishna. And then the next verse after that is Janmasya Tadita, is that everything that exists emanates from the Supreme. So we can see like this big, large, gigantic universe. That was the other thing I was kind of looking up to, about the time factor and the universe. So there's a lot of subject matter. It even was describing that according to the digital revolution and digital communication, we also have changed our view of the universe according to this specific media, right? And apparently, I guess they were referring to a computer program called Kalam Time. So that's they're trying to understand the vast universe. The universe is actually much larger. There's the Devidam, the Maheshdam, Brahmaloka, the Tapavana. It's apparently, according to Srimad Bhagavatam, the hellish planets, or some of the hellish planets, are placed on Pluto, really close to the sun, right? Pluto and Mercury. and some of the lower planetary systems below us, the subterranean heavenly planetary systems. And the universe is vast. The Garbhodak waters, the bottom of the ocean. Who's that? Brigham Muni. He wanted to see Krishna's Maya, right? And two persons wanted to see Krishna's Maya. Brigham Muni and Narada Muni. They wanted to see Krishna's Maya. So it's two different incidents. So all of a sudden the wind started blowing and the material elements started winding out. The the earth started winding up into more subtle energy. The water started going into more subtle energy into, earth, water, fire, air. So there's the water went into fire, fire went into air went into ether, and along with that went all the senses and the sense perception, touch, taste, sight, sensation, sound. And Brigham Muni found himself floating, submerged, sometimes submerging very deeply, sometimes surfacing within the Garbhodak ocean. It's practically almost for an eternity, outside of the creation of the universe in its tangible creative form and a form of dissolution. And then a Sarabi cow pulled him out and brought him to the land of Navadvip, and explained that Navadvip, just like Vrindavan, is a transcendental tract of land which is eternal, which is always present. It's viewed from the planet Earth, and this is where Krishna performs his pastimes. Like that. So let's see if I can think of anything else or my train of thought. Any questions or comments, or anyone would like to make any statements? Yeah, so the time factor, Prabhupada was also counting this too, as the time factor being the 25th element. So we read all these, this is also in Bhagavad Gita too. There's the 5 working senses and the 10 knowledge acquiring senses. And the 10 knowledge acquiring senses have their sense objects, or what's called the subtle senses, such as the sight, sound, touch, taste, smell, right, and sensation. And so then what we're talking about, he was counting this, so there's, and the 8 material elements, or they're actually saying the 5 material elements, earth, water, fire, air, and ether, and the subtle body, mind, intelligence, and false ego, and then the self and the super soul, the 3 modes of material nature, and the time factor. Right, so we can understand the universe as being a Vedic universe and being arranged in this specific way. So Prabhupada was saying, so this is the analytical study of Sankhya philosophy. So he was saying, well, it's important to understand the Sankhya philosophy. Krishna teaches in Bhagavad Gita, and Lord Kapila Dev is teaching it here in Srimad Bhagavatam. And what they said in the narration to these chapters is that the subject matter about Karna Muni, Devahuti, and Kapila Dev, and the subject matter of Krishna teaching the Uddhava Bhagavad Gita are the 2 largest subject matters within Srimad Bhagavatam, where the Uddhava Bhagavad Gita is the largest, and the subject matter of the Sankhya philosophy of Lord Kapila Dev is the 2nd largest subject matter in Srimad Bhagavatam. And then there are 10 principles, the 10 factors of Srimad Bhagavatam, that Krishna existed before the creation, Brahma is the secondary creator, Krishna is the original creator, Krishna is our protector, the demigods are the progenitors, the populators of the universe. Let's see, and then Krishna will still exist after the duration of the universe, right? And there's the dissolution of the universe. So, and that's also explained too, how all things that come into the material world are under the time factor. Let's see, are created, remain for some time, produce byproducts, gradually dwindles and vanishes. So everything is all fixed in its own time according to its relative body. Prabhupada was saying that we create ourselves by our karma, by the particular body that we have. So yeah, I guess we wanted to end class on time. Any questions or comments? Maybe we can end class there. Okay, Srimad Bhagavatam Press Ki Jai.